Greetings. Today we're considering part 2 of the conflict from the book of 3 John. Even the God-appointed pastor who has been placed as the overseer over a particular flock of God, always non-universal, a local visible body, according to the Word of God, is commanded not to rule as a lord or a dictator, as Diotrephes was trying to do, of the flock, but rather he was to be an example of the flock, to be out in front and lead them as he follows the commands of the Word of God and the example of Jesus in the paths of righteousness. As Paul said to young Timothy in 1 Timothy 4:12, "Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity." What we shall see is that Diotrephes was violating these principles. Diotrephes, the condemned dictator of the church and of the traveling Christians. Verse 9 says, "I wrote to the church assembly, but to Diotrephes, the one loving to have preeminence of them, he is not hospitably receiving us himself." Some would want us to get bogged down in a controversy as to whether Diotrephes was a pastor, a deacon, or just one of the men in the church. I think we can sidestep that controversy by merely pointing out that the actions of the man would be wrong regardless of which of these positions he might have held in the church. What Diotrephes did and why he did it is stated in a twofold manner. Number one, why he did it. He loved to have the preeminence in the church. Two, in order to flaunt his power and position, which was to refuse to receive John's letter, which was tantamount to refusing John himself, which was violating the principle of the Lord himself, stated in Matthew chapter 10, verse 40, "He that receiveth you receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me." I trust we understand that the opposite is also true. To refuse God's messenger is to refuse the God who sent the messenger. This is what Diotrephes had done. 3 John 10 says, "Because of this thing, if and when I should come, I remember his particular works which he is doing, trifling, talking about us by means of evil, malicious words, and not being satisfied with these words." See, John declares that Diotrephes will be held accountable for both his works and his words in this manner. The work was refusing to receive John's letter to the church, which some take as evidence that he was the pastor. I'll say not necessarily the pastor, but we certainly know it's the evidence that he was the bell cow of the herd, if we can mix the metaphor a little. The words were the method of his refusal, which he chose to use. The case can easily be made that Diotrephes was a manipulator. Remember the 4 steps which are used by manipulators. First, they use flattery. And if flattery fails to achieve their desired goal, then immediately they go to a guilt trip, stating that you owe me. They flip it around, and the offense which they have committed is put to your blame. And they try to blackmail, use filthy lucre involved in this step to get you to comply. And when this fails to receive their desired goal, then they begin with relentless criticism, which I think is what is indicated Diotrephes was doing concerning John here. And John indicates it will include trivial things made into major criticisms. And if none of the first 3 steps succeed in getting the manipulator what they want, then they set out to destroy whomever or whatever is viewed as an obstacle to what they want. Notice this end is noted by John as what Diotrephes did to any and every one who did not follow his dictates. The last part of 3 John 10 says, "Neither is he receiving the brethren himself," and he's preventing the ones desiring themselves to receiving the brethren. "Even he is casting out away from the church assembly." Obviously, Diotrephes has moved past flattery and shifted blame to the Apostle John and anyone who dared not follow his dictates, allowing him to have his preeminence. John declares that he has used evil, malicious words to talk about him concerning trifling or trivial things, and when these words did not work, that is, get him his way, he proceeded to destroy, cast out of the church, anyone who dared to do the right thing because it was contrary to his will, which he did not allow him to be the preeminent one in the body. Verse 11 says, Beloved one, you imitate not the evil thing, but you imitate the good thing. The one doing good, he is being out from the God, but the one doing evil, he has not seen God with perception. 3 John 11 serves as the transition point to our third point, the counsel by John, which we will consider in detail next time. I only mention it here as part of the conflict to make this point. The one who was not doing God's will had set himself up as the preeminent one. Regardless of whether Diotrephes was a saved man or a lost man, his actions and his words prove that he was not seeing God with perception if he was usurping Christ's place for himself. Anyone, anytime, who strives for preeminence, who does not rightly belong to him, causes a conflict also, be it in a personal relationship, a family, or a church. So stay tuned for the counsel on how to handle this kind of person, because we all have to deal with them in this present world.